So hello, and welcome to the shortened version of the Expat pod, which is a kind of quick fire questions. So I'm joined by my lovely guest, Aoife, who you've lived in so many different places, but you're currently now in Tenerife, having lived in London, Australia, Barcelona, Germany, America. I think that's everything. But what has been your favourite place you've lived?
Oh, that's a tough question. That's toughy. I loved London. I did love living in London. I know it's not for everyone, but I really enjoyed my time there in terms of social life and the busyness of it all, being so well connected, things being open, kind of 24 hours. So in terms of living, is probably up there in one of my favourite places to have lived.
Wonderful. And what's your favourite international food?
Oh, this is a tough one as well. Generally speaking, I love Italian food. I love Greek food. But recently what I'm getting into in Tenerife is a parrilla, which is basically like an outdoor grill, like a barbecue type of thing with delicious pork on it, seasoned pork and sausages and things like that. So that's kind of my new one for now. But generally speaking, a bit of Greek food, any type of Greek food, a bit of Italian, any type of Italian.
It's a good European mix.
Yeah.
What's been your favourite international tradition?
Oh, I'm not sure about that one, actually. I'm not sure. Now, at the time of this recording, we have the New Year's Eve is coming up soon, and they have a tradition in Spain that I've never done before, but I might give it a go on this New Year's Eve, and that is for every tone of the bell at 12 o'clock, so 12 tones, obviously, you put a grape in your mouth. Yeah, so I'm going to have to try and fit 12 grapes in my mouth.
I'll have to ask you in January how you got on with that.
Yeah, or maybe don't. Like I can't speak anymore.
Turn into wine.
12 grapes.
About 12 sips of wine instead. Same idea.
I think I prefer that actually. Yeah, that's a grape substitution. Grape substitute.
It's enhanced grape.
Yeah, it's like a fruit salad. What did you have for dinner? I had a fruit salad. Oh, I just had grapes. I just had wine
and some cider for the apple.
Yeah.
What's your favourite thing about living abroad?
There's a few things I think, and maybe they're a little bit contradictory, but I love the connecting with other expats, because I feel like you can connect with people when you're abroad in a way that you can't necessarily connect at home. I didn't go into any of this on the kind of full-length episode of the podcast, but I really got into rugby when I was in London, especially, and just, donning the Irish jersey and going to an Irish pub and meeting other Irish people. And you just kind of connect on a different level, I think, just purely for being Irish. Whereas if you're at home, you don't necessarily connect with someone because everyone is Irish. So I think on the one hand, there's that. But on the other hand, there's the exploration and there's the connecting with local people and getting to know the local culture, which is kind of slightly different.
Yeah, it's a good point. The Six Nations is probably quite a popular time to be Irish anywhere. So.
Exactly.
I did a similar thing in Sweden where I went to watch Six Nations in a British pub because it wasn't English or Irish or whatever, and there was a mixture of all the home nations, which was both a blessing and a curse when you were playing Wales or something.
Oh yes,
you got abused. But it felt like home. Rugby seems to do that, especially with the British app.
It's a nice. I think it's just a nice way to connect. And interestingly, I was still kind of paying attention to it when I was in Australia, although the time difference meant that it was on at ridiculous times in the morning in Australia. And then when I came back initially, for the first couple of years even, I was still into watching rugby. And then I just completely got out of it. And again, I think probably before I left for London in the first place, I wasn't that into it at all. But just being abroad, it gave me that thing to connect with other people about.
Wonderful. And what's your best homesickness remedy?
Good question. I think just having a chat with someone at home, and it's so much easier to do that now. just talking with people, and it's something that I wouldn't have known when I was traveling previously, but this idea of gratitude has become much more prevalent, I think, in recent years. So on the one hand, connecting with someone at home, but then remembering why you're in that place in the first place and being grateful for it. So when I'm talking with people from home, and not to make people too jealous who are listening today, but you're even talking about being in cold and dark and wet England, I need to remember I'm in a warm country. It's almost guaranteed sunshine every day. I need to remember those reasons and kind of why I'm here in the first place. I think it's really important. And then I think I know you've asked for just one, but I'll build on that. I think it's connecting with people locally to kind of break that loneliness as well. And even having something to look forward to. So I'm going home in September for a week. So that's something to look forward to as well.
Well, that's very true. What's the hardest thing about living abroad?
I think being away from family and friends, like that's the biggest thing. I think with family, not that it doesn't matter that you're away, but I think from a friendship perspective, when you're friends with people, you need to have people around at the time, and the presence and the being physically in the same location is really important, I think, for friendships in the long term, because when I'm here, I want to be able to meet up with people on a regular basis who are here. So I want to have friends here. And if you're spending time with friends here, maybe you have less time for friends at home, or you're connecting over WhatsApp, over text, over video call, over call, which is not quite the same as meeting up with people. So I would say that is really tough from a friendship perspective. On the family thing, I think those kinds of things are less important, because you're always going to be connected with your family and it doesn't matter about those things. The hard things are being in Australia so far away that if anything happened, it's a 24-hour flight to get home. And that makes things really hard, especially as I get older, as my parents get older as well. Being away from home, I think, is going to be really hard. And if I only get to see my family twice a year or even 4 times a year, it's hard, because when you're at home, you have the opportunity to see them all the time.
That's a very good point. And going back in more light to things, what's the best phrase you've learned whilst living abroad? Probably in English or in Spanish?
Ooh, that's also a tough one. I mean, there's so many things. I think when I first started back picking up Spanish again, it was all of the bad language that I started to remember again, which is great. They have a phrase in Spanish that I'm like, am I allowed to even say this on the radio, on the podcast? But they kind of use language in a way that if you use it in English, it would be really offensive, but actually in Spanish, it's not really. So I'm like, I'm not sure am I allowed to say it, but like that, you just add it at the start of a sentence, and it makes the rest of the sentence kind of like, I'm so surprised about this, for example. I don't want to say what the word is.
That's fair.
Because apparently it's a bad word, but like you can just put it at the start of a sentence and then say the rest of the word, and it's like, I'm annoyed about this, basically. Yeah.
That's fair enough. And what's your best way of making friends whilst living abroad?
I think we talked about this, didn't we? There's the rugby connection. I'm less into that now. And I mentioned on the full episode, Meetup was really a really brilliant resource. And I know we talked about this before, but like how I connected in Tenerife was quite random. But actually, I think the group that I connected with is on Meetup as well. So had I gone on to Meetup to look for expats or just any sort of meetings happening in Tenerife, then I would have found it. So I think Meetup is brilliant. And I think just getting out there and doing classes, if you're into that kind of thing, exercise classes, running, yoga, whatever it might be, really great way to meet people. It depends on who you want to meet. Going back to what I said earlier, is it about connecting with local people, or is it about connecting with other expats who are in a similar position to yourself?
That's a very good point. Meetup I used a lot, and I joined a sports team whilst in Sweden because it's how I escaped from work. I got to meet lots of Swedish people, which was quite good. And what's the best thing to do in your new kind of home?
I think enjoy the sunshine. Like it's a hot country. It's between 20 and 30 degrees all year round. Like sometimes in the summer it can go up above 30 degrees, but for the most part it's between 20 and 30. So it's really, really nice from that perspective. I probably don't do as much as I should. Like I need to get out and enjoy the sun and take advantage a little bit more, especially since I'm going home in a couple of weeks and I should really show off my colour when I go home. But yeah, I'd say that's one of the big things is take advantage of the sun when I'm here.
And then the last question is, what's your best expat life hack?
I'm just thinking actually something that I've done recently, because we've talked about how to make friends and different things like that. But I've recently updated my LinkedIn profile to say that I'm in Spain. So I'm hoping that because of that, if people are searching for people in Spain, I haven't said specifically Tenerife, but that I can connect with other Spanish speakers. I also do a regular speaking thing. Regular, I say, like kind of the end of every month, but we took a bit of a break during the summer where we talk about subjects that I'm interested in, but we do it through Spanish and it's live only and it's on LinkedIn. Yeah. So just, I suppose, using social media to connect with people who share similar interests to yourself and practice the language.
That's amazing. That's a great tip. As always, thank you for your time. And as always, if you have enjoyed this podcast or this smaller version of a podcast, and please do subscribe to the channel. Please do follow it on Spotify and other many podcasting services which are available. Please do go and listen to Aoife's podcast as well, which is amazing. And yeah, you'll learn quite a lot about that, especially in the business world. And we'll see you next time for the Expat Pod.